Well, boy, the program is absolutely cracking along today, and I'm getting some amazing texts from people, which I will get back to. But look, our next guest, someone who has made huge contributions, I think, to the country and indeed to the platform, particularly over the time of COVID, with some really specific critiques of the government's response and how we could have done better. He is a tech and social entrepreneur, one of our most outstanding in the country. But he has stepped down, and I think this is a shame and a loss to the country, from a couple of public roles in the wake of the election result and the coalition result. And I wanted to have a talk to him about why and why we are losing his services in those roles. So I'm very pleased to welcome back to the program Ian Taylor. Ian, lovely to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, morning, Sean. Good to see you.
All right. 3-4 days ago, you announced, with some flourish, because you're the sort of guy who gets some attention, that you tell us the roles you stepped down from, the public roles you stepped down from.
Stepped aside from rather than down, Sean.
Okay.
So the two that really mattered were I Am Hope, Mike King's mental health group, and another group that I've been on for about 2 or 3 years, which is called the New Zealand Product Accelerator. And it's yes, I am stepping down off the boards, but that doesn't mean I'm not staying to help. From the sidelines, I will continue to help with whatever they're doing, because
and both really good initiatives and ideas that would have been, I'm sure, have benefited greatly from you being involved. I'm just going to ask you in your own words then, why?
Well, it just concerned me. I've watched. What was it? I guess the first thing that happened was I was a bit surprised at the speed. It was nice. The speed at which the government moved, first of all, in Mike King's case, because we had talked about the fact that the work he does has never been funded by government. And then one of the first things they did was allocate $6 million a year for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that and thought, gee, well, that's a flying start. I mean, we do need to talk about how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
But then almost in the same breath, same day, same week, I saw, Winston Peters' performance at the press conference, which, we're all used to. I saw...
What was it that he said that particularly outraged you?
Oh, I just think that whole idea that the media has been bribed by government.
But it has, Ian.
Well, so we can agree to disagree here.
No. It's not, Ian. It's not a question of agreeing to disagree. There are documents that show how it was done. They took millions of dollars and signed agreements as to how they would interpret certain issues in New Zealand. Right? They did that. There isn't any debate over this. It's fact.
Well, I'm always a little concerned when people say something's a fact. So
I don't know. I've got documents. We've got the agreements that were signed by the media organisations. That's evidence. That's evidence. And whether or not it's legally a bribe, the public perception is that it is a bribe, and they took money and agreed to report things and run their businesses in certain ways.
Can you name anyone who was in that press conference that he was targeting journalists who were funded by that fund?
Yep.
So
I can name every single mainstream news organisation has received money with editorial strings attached from the government. And whether or not the individual journalists did it, they worked for organisations that did it.
So I was on the board of New Zealand On Air. So here's the first step. There is only one way you get that money. You have got to go through New Zealand On Air.
Yep.
You have got to make an application.
Yep.
And as a board member on New Zealand On Air, we were very strict and very careful about where we put that money. So what Winston was actually doing was accusing New Zealand On Air of bribery. That is a board I stood on.
Yeah.
That is a board
okay. We're getting to it now. That's interesting. So you considered it a personal accusation of you of bribery?
Yeah, not of me, because I'm not on the board anymore.
Okay.
But actually, what he was doing was accusing the only body that can hand out any of that money of being bribed
But we had Raymond Rash, who headed the PIJF, and in fact they replayed this interview on Radio New Zealand, on Media Watch on Sunday morning, of her saying, we never interfered in editorial, that was never part of it. She then described how on the first PIJF-funded podcast, which was about the Central South Island fault line, they wouldn't let the publisher publish it until they found a Maori perspective. So they directly interfered. They directly interfered in the editorial content of that piece, and they gaslight us by saying, but it was never about editorial control. Well, sorry, Ian, the facts are that it was.
You asked me why I stepped down from the board.
Yeah, and I've
just given you my answer.
And we've got to...
I've given you my answer.
Yeah.
And the reason I would have stepped down from the board is that now you and I would have been able to have that discussion. I would have been able to speak out instead of being silenced by the rules. So that's the answer to the question.
Okay, and I see what you're saying, and that's a damn good point, actually. Well played. Look, the other thing is...
So the question.
I just come back to then, I think this is a loss. I think, things you believe in, like the Mike King thing, have got money. There's good that's come out of this. This seems, from an outsider's perspective, to be an I don't like Winston Peters thing.
No, I have great admiration for Winston Peters. And in fact, I had been in discussions. I somewhere again, it's interesting that the reason, whenever I make a comment, someone always needs to categorise where I sit.
Yeah.
It is not about not liking Winston Peters.
Yeah.
I'd go and sit with the Matua tomorrow and say, Winston, here's what I think. This is what I think you're being stupid. And he can tell me why he thinks I'm not being stupid. But that, I think that being voted into a position of power, and he's only got 8 seats, but being voted into a position of power is a privilege.
Yep.
And Winston, the old bugger, the old Matua, has got he's taken it as it's not a privilege anymore. It's almost like his right, and he enjoys the games he plays. He enjoys stirring things up.
Yeah,
and I'd really love to see leaders now to go, we've got some really big issues to address. Let's start addressing them.